All right, good afternoon. I'm attorney Biari Lamar. I'm joined with the family, parents, supporters of Joel Acevedo. As you are aware, today we filed a $15 million lawsuit against several defendants in this case. We came here today to the Milwaukee County Courthouse. Now, the case that we filed is in the Eastern District of Wisconsin, but we chose to come here for several reasons. As you all recall, back in 2020, April 19th, there was a very tragic incident that occurred in the city of Milwaukee that was amongst a time in which we were under a pandemic. We were under a stay-at-home order. We all are aware that there was a party that took place that ultimately turned out to be a very tragic incident in which this family that I stand with today has realized. Now, the year 2020, we all remember, will be historic. It will be something we'll never forget. That was a time not only where we were all wearing masks, we all had to stay away 6 feet from each other, but it was a time that was very important and historic for social justice. It was a time where at these same courthouse steps that we were at, galvanized, brought together many different families, organizations for the interest of justice. We recall the George Floyd situation taking place. We had hundreds of people right here on these courthouse steps that stood in solidarity with Joel Acevedo and these families all across the country who have suffered from police brutality. As we stand here 3 years later, which I will address and talk about the mere fact that we're just now filing this lawsuit almost 3 years from the time of incident. But it's imperative and it demonstrates that there's unfinished business that needs to take place in this case. As you are all aware, while the criminal proceedings are being taken place and being orchestrated in this courthouse behind us involving off-duty officer Michael Mattioli, there is now a civil component that we now have filed today to try to seek remedies in the Eastern District of Wisconsin for the loss of life. Now, I want to just be the first and say at the onset that this was a very brutal, violent, and slow demise that took place with Joel Acevedo. As you are aware, this resulted from a chokehold. And Joel Acevedo was choked for approximately 11 minutes and 20 seconds. Joel Acevedo didn't die right away. He suffered, not just for a couple hours before he died. Joel Acevedo suffered not just for a day, not just for 2 days. Joel Acevedo suffered for 6 days. He died on April 25th of 2020. As a result of that, in the practices and the policies that the City of Milwaukee Police Department maintained, the use of the rear chokeholds, naked chokeholds, that wasn't just used on Joel Acevedo. This has been a pattern, it has been a practice that this city has allowed for years. You don't have to place an individual in a chokehold to restrain them. And that's just not my opinion. That is just not the position of the Acevedos or the supporters and community organizations in this city. There was a unanimous vote by the Milwaukee and Fire Commission back in 2021 that came to the same conclusion, that there's no exception for chokeholds to be used in this city. So as a result of that, this family seeks justice. We now turn to the civil justice system. We now turn to the Eastern District of Wisconsin to try to seek a recovery for the loss of life in this instance. Now I want to just retract back a bit as to why does it take 3 years for us to now just file a lawsuit. There's another issue that I've brought, not only in the Acevedo case, but in several cases in this city. and it deals in part with open records laws in this state. We need, and I'm calling now on legislatures, state senators to enact legislation that has an expedited process in which there can be an appeal process, but no family should have to go 3 years to still not see the body cam footage that took place with the loss of their son. 3 years. This resulted in not only not getting closure for this family, not only in them not having an understanding of the actual facts, not only in not having transparency, but we literally had to almost file this lawsuit blindly without having all the facts, without having all the investigative materials available to us in bringing the lawsuit that we did. As you are well aware, there's a statute of limitations that is going to be up next week. We couldn't wait any longer. This family couldn't wait any longer. Justice could not wait any longer. As a result of that, there's 3 defendants that we named in this lawsuit. One of the most obvious, the one that is, as you are well aware, is facing criminal charges, is Michael Mattioli. We'll see very soon if a jury determines that his actions on April 19th of 2020 warrant criminal culpability. We've also named in this lawsuit former Chief of Police Alfonso Morales. We believe that he was well aware that these practices, these procedures, these chokeholds were being orchestrated, not only on April 19th, but for years. It did not move and act to make sure that that was precluded. Finally, Officer Robert Roach. That was an on-duty officer, that was an arriving officer on that date. He came to the scene, and we believe that he deferred from acting immediately to prevent Michael Mattioli from orchestrating this rear chokehold. We believe for almost 22 seconds. That's just a couple seconds that I just paused for. But for 22 seconds, there was no instruction for Michael Mattioli to get up. There was no instruction for him to release this chokehold, and Joel continued to suffer these additional 22 seconds. Now, when we're talking about airwaves being cut off, when we're talking about being choked, every second matters. And we believe that the failure to intervene by what we believe to be 22 seconds could have been determinative on whether Joel would have been with us today. In sum, that is the basis and the premise of our case, our call to action, our call for justice, and I now will defer to the family.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's going on 3 years that we've been dealing with this, not able to not even getting no closure or no communication from the DA's office. It's been very frustrating for us as parents, as human beings. My son was a human being. His life was taken away from him. For what reason? As a parent, it's very hard to see a loved one taken away like that. No justification. And even if there was justification, there was no reason for him to do that to my son and take his life away. It's even harder as a parent, as a father, have to do your own son's funeral. And still have to go on with my life, with my family, taking care of my daughter, the rest of the family, my wife, and still serve the community that we lived in. Joel grew up, Joel had a lot to offer the community. These officers, and I say officers because there's more stuff that should come out. There should have been more charges come against Mattioli. There wasn't, and I'll leave that up to John Chisholm. But we're going to keep pushing forward. Joel's not here, but his heart is with us. His heart continues to live in somebody else's body. I thank God for that. And overall, I thank God for his mercy, for his love, and perfect peace that he's been able to give us, and allowed us to keep moving forward day by day. But it hurts. It hurts. There's no words I can say that would make me feel better. But there's the God that he's our vindicator, and justice is going to be served. I truly believe that justice is going to be served, whether it's in this life or the next life. And we really weren't prepared. I thank you all for showing up. I want to thank my attorneys for sticking in there for us. But overall, attorneys all over the world, all in one, there's one attorney that we really depend on, and his name is Jesus Christ. He's the attorney of all attorneys. So that's all I got to say.
There's no amount of money that will put a value to my son's life. Nothing in this world. But due to the laws that are here on earth, I hope it helps to bring some sort of change and accountability to the city. They have done this case so wrong. So wrong, as my son's life does not matter. I just hope that each individual that was involved in my son's murder will have a heart of conscience. That they will know that one day they will meet a God that will judge their sins. And I pray that they will come to that place. Because this is life. My son's life mattered. Maybe to others it didn't. He's our son. He was full of life. And he would never be forgotten.
And I just want to add to the leaders of Milwaukee, to the leaders, the ones that hold the check and balances, that's been sitting there behind your desk, quiet, not saying anything. Shame on you all. Shame on you all leaders. I'm talking from the governor to the mayor to the leaders, even the FPC, the city attorney, every single one. I hold you all accountable for what's going on here in the city of Milwaukee, and you all are allowing it. Shame on you.
As you can see, this is a very, very emotional time for this family. I want to also thank, just to the city, to all the different organizations that have come together and supported this family. We thank you. I want to thank my co-counsel on this case, who could not be here with me today. As you've all seen, attorney Ben Crump has played a very influential role. This family has not only been here in the city of Milwaukee, advocating, bringing attention to these issues. They've been all the way to the March on Washington. So this case has obviously arose to the national level here. Also my co-counsel, Kirk Clunch, who's also, working on this case along with us. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming together. At this time, I'll take a couple questions.
Mr. Lamar, let's talk about the body camera footage, because in December of 2022, a court ruled that the footage should be released. Why have you not seen it yet? Why has this family not seen that footage yet?
Yes, and I want to make that clarification that the city of Milwaukee has not in any way withheld the body camera footage in this case. The plaintiff who sought to restrict that, the release was Michael Mattioli. All right, the Court of Appeals has agreed that that footage should be released, and I believe that's what you're referring to, that decision. Obviously there's appellate rights beyond the Court of Appeals, and Michael Mattioli has exercised those rights to go to the Supreme Court to have that determination made there. So it's currently pending whether the Supreme Court is going to actually hear this matter. Now, I just want to say that I think that the law is very clear. The law favors transparency, not only to grieving families, but also to the media. And I think that tactics, delay tactics, and so forth, anything that acts to circumvent transparency and the openness, I think we have to work and call upon our legislatures to tighten those restrictions and expedite the process in order to have an appellate process, but it has to be done timely. No family should be standing here 3 years later not having access to body camera footage. No family should have to be in a position as we were today to file a lawsuit without having all the facts, without knowing if there's any other parties who maybe should have been a part of this lawsuit. So again, that's something that we got to continue working on.
Why go after the two officers, the former officer, the current officer, and the former police chief individually instead of adding the entire Milwaukee Police Department to this lawsuit?
Well, technically, when we look at a constitutional claim, it has to be against an individual act. All right, so we believe that former Chief Morales, we hold him responsible largely for the acts of the police department. He's the decision maker in many instances. And again, as I referenced before, he had full knowledge of the chokeholds that were being orchestrated, didn't act to try to prevent that. And ultimately, Joel Acevedo realized the consequence, the most deadly consequence of those actions. So again, that's why he's held accountable in that instance.
Connect the dots still for us, because Mattioli was off duty at the time that this happened. How is the chief responsible for someone who was off duty in their actions?
Well, the City of Milwaukee Police Department has a policy that allows an officer, even off duty, to act if they believe that there's a crime that has been committed. I mean, it's like if you're in a grocery store and there's a police officer, he has a gun there, and is getting robbed, you wouldn't expect them to say, oh, I'm off duty, I'm not gonna do anything. So the policy allows and permits officers when there's a crime committed in their presence. In this instance, Michael Mattioli alleged that Joel had took something from his pockets. All right, there's many times that we have seen an investigative file, the parts that we have seen, the body camera footage that we have seen, and the reports, he continually alleged I was making an arrest. So we believe that, he had a Milwaukee Police Department T-shirt on. He called 911, which we did make that public. First thing he says is, "I'm an officer, and I need you to send help." The arriving officer, Officer Robert Roach, when he gets to the scene, he says, after he sees two men at this time, one man strangling and choking another, he says, "Who's the officer?" Michael Mattioli says, "I am." So that's the basis in which we believe he did operate under the color of law. And despite him being off duty, we believe he should be held accountable and indemnified by the city of Milwaukee.
What about the statute of limitations you mentioned? What were you referring to that's up? You said a week.
Yeah, so the statute of limitation follows with civil rights causes of action, a 3-year statute of limitation. And 3 years would be up on what we believe to be April 19th of this year. So here we are just getting ahead of that deadline to file the action today.
Is Officer Roach still with MPD?
Our understanding, to our knowledge, he is still with the Milwaukee Police Department.
What are you thinking heading into the trial, which is supposed to begin in June?
Well, as you are well aware, there's different standards as it relates to the criminal justice system and the civil justice system. And the criminal, obviously the criminal culpability has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. We believe that obviously he'll have some sort of defense to his actions. We believe that, of course, the cumulative evidence in regards to the 911 call, the use of a chokehold and so forth make this very clear. But obviously, he'll have a defense. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But regardless to how the criminal case plays out, we has no bearing on this civil case. I think that the standard in determining whether his actions were excessive, I think is very clear. I think that even the fact that the Milwaukee and Fire Police Commission unanimously banned the use of chokeholds shows that this is a technique that does not have to be used. It is not necessary to choke somebody in order to restrain them.
Where would this settlement come from?
Well,
If you are successful.
Well, we believe that all the officers, all the defendants that were named in this case are representatives at that time of the city of Milwaukee by way of the Milwaukee Police Department. So we would expect that the city to indemnify the actions of these individual officers. All right, thank you so much, and again, we appreciate your support.